Let's talk about Pete Hegseth, because there's this idea about Trump that he's invulnerable, that he can steamroll through any opposition. I mean, his Republican caucus in the Senate has rolled over every time he's pushed them. But the Matt Gaetz withdrawal was a pretty good example that's not true, that if we push back hard enough, we can win. And I think the pressure on Pete Hegseth appears to be working as well. I mean, you've been a steady voice of not just reason, but raising the alarm about how dangerous he would be at the helm of the Department of Defense. What are the top three things that this audience needs to know about Pete Hegseth? And you could pick 20, but the list is long and the top three are pretty bad.
I think the number one thing to understand is that Pete Hegseth is kind of the 5-meter target right now. He's the one that people should focus on because he is the most immediate and the most dangerous, with Gaetz out of the way. And even if Gaetz was still there, I would argue that the Pentagon is kind of the most valuable chip on the board because of obviously things like nukes in our military, but also the cultural impact, the size of the people that are managed, almost 3 million people, the size of the budget. It's the biggest chip on the board, right? And I think that's why it needs to be focused on as a part of talking about Pete. But I think the other thing I would tell people is none of this is normal. None of this is acceptable, and none of it's inevitable. And you got to fight for every yard, right? Let's use the football analogy of the military. You got to fight and hold every piece of ground that you can. And I know a lot of folks are feeling rejected. A lot of folks are feeling down. But this is a time when you need to dig in because Trump ain't stopping. He's rolling. He's feeling himself. He's pushing the pace. He's throwing deep balls like the Hegseth nomination. He wants to run up the score. And Democrats especially are probably in their most powerful position right now to flex their muscle and to push back. So I think Pete is really a crossroads moment, not just for this administration, but for our country.